Yeah, I figured when I remember when I recruited Jim, I thought you had a biology degree, but unless it's chemistry, but I figure if you can get one of those 2 degrees, you got to be pretty smart. So you're hired, right? So yeah, I used to teach, so that's a pretty cool story. Hey, we're going to start out our talk with a video. So that's always nice when you go to school. You know, you always wanted to watch a movie and not have to be in class. But after we're done with the video, then we're going to dive pretty deep into a lot of detail and teaching about SEO. And I think you guys will enjoy it. Stop us whenever you want. We do have a part for questions in the middle. So this is a video starring our little mascot back at work called Nugget. And it's starring my daughter. She's one of our art directors, and I think you'll enjoy it. And it kind of connects the dots on how many times people ask me, what is SEO? So, Jim?
Hi, I'm Morgan, and I'm here today to talk to you about SEO. SEO stands for...
Oh, I know something. Snuggle every octopus.
Actually, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. It's a way to make your website easier for Google to find.
Silly emu omelet.
No, Nugget. This means including links on your own site and using the words and phrases people are searching for. The faster Google can find your website, the more opportunity you'll have to gather leads.
Sam Elliott's optometrist.
Are you done?
Yes. Wait. Yes.
Connect with MCD Digital and see how we can take your web presence to the next level.
Shave every otter. Strange evil onion. Stop. Eat an omelet.
We have fun with Nugget here and there. Okay. So now that Nugget's finally shut up, we'll get started. Okay. So what we're going to do today is help you understand how to become a master of your own domain or multiple domains that you may own that you point your website files to. I'm sorry, I was so used to, let's see here, is this going to work? There we go. Come on, there we go. What we're going to cover. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about what SEO is. SEO tactics, why is it important for a hospital, certainly. Why is ADA so important? So we're going to talk about ADA and how we're separating that from our SEO process completely, because it's such a monumental task now to optimize the site for ADA compliance. What is social bookmarking? We'll spend a little time on that, and then how is SEO measured? So what is search engine optimization? Well, I mean, Nugget tried to define it in a different way, but really is, in simple terms, it means a process of improving your site to increase the visibility when people search for products or services. So in your case, healthcare services. And the better visibility your pages have in search results, the more likely you are to garner attention and get those clicks. So it's really pretty simple. It's the organic side of internet marketing. So you want to increase that high quality traffic to your site. Higher quality traffic equals more patients. So you're always going to have a more highly likelihood of conversion from click to a patient from organic traffic, because they're the most actively seeking your services. They're the ones that are finding you through their own search, not through an ad. They're going below the ads in most cases and clicking on your web pages. So what's fueling the growth? So in the past 2.5 years, we've dealt with a lot of fun in healthcare, right? So a lot of people at home, they're still at home. There's tons of people. I drive by buildings all the time, and they still have empty parking lots. So a lot of people looking for answers on the internet for healthcare. So not to say that really referrals are obsolete. We all know that goes on a lot, and there's a lot of physician referral influence on patient visits, regardless of what kind of service it is. But really, in order to put your practice or your hospital in front of those prospects, you need to have a high SERP ranking. So that's the basic aspect of SEO, right? The SERP. So your search engine results page list that results from search engine returns in response to a specific keyword or phrase typed into Google or some other search engine. So why do we need high SERP rankings? Because the first 5 organic search listings get about 68% of the website clicks. So that's what we're constantly measuring, first page all the time. So we all talked about that. We all, and everybody in this room probably focuses on that quite often. Now, it is a challenge, and we've done entire talks on this, on different algorithms through the years, many of them at this conference, that just because your machine shows you first page results, don't trust that, because it's all based on your machine's history and your own behavior. I could take your machine, your computer, spend about a week or two with it, and just use it, and it'll change all your search engine results based on who I am and what I'm searching for. So you got to realize that you really need to use analytical tools to really figure out the average page ranking and where you're appearing. So some of the benefits of SEO, and why should we even care about it? Because some people are just really, they don't understand it, so they don't really pursue it. We get into so many clients where we'll build a website and just trying to convince them of getting an understanding, a general understanding of why they should even care about SEO. And again, it's that high quality traffic, it's the consistent exposure of your key pages. It's really a low initial investment. It's not something that costs a lot. It just needs some hours put behind it, whether it's a team basis with a firm or whether it's just on your own. And then it also helps you achieve brand authority. And brand authority is very important on the internet. There's actually a scoring system called Moz, and it actually scores your authority, your organization's authority, or in this case, a website, on certain search terms. So it could be, orthopedic surgery or knee surgery. Do you have the most authority on that subject matter within your geographical range? So obviously, these are all things that if you can achieve, it's going to drive your costs down in terms of how much paid advertising you need to do on the internet. So it's that balancing act. So we had an increase in telehealth visits due to the pandemic, right? No big surprise, right? That's still going on. It went on before the pandemic. Zoom calls happened before the pandemic too. That always cracks me up. It's like we were doing calls before the pandemic. It's not the pandemic that drove all that. It just drove more of it, right? So it drove more of this. So if they're on telehealth visits, what do they often have to do after they get off one? They got to click on something. A lot of times they have to go to a portal. They're being asked to do things. They might be checking on a prescription, whatever it is, but they've got to use the internet a lot. So that's driving a lot of people there. As a matter of fact, the ASP report found that the share of Medicare visits conducted through telehealth in 2020 increased 63-fold from approximately 184,000 in 2019 to a whopping 52.7 million in 2020. That's crazy, right? So it just went nuts. And then the thing is, we've gotten people used to using it. Now they're still using it. Now I'm sure it's starting to come down because we get to go to the doctor's office now. So that's kind of nice, right? So really in a more of a normal fashion, right? You can walk in with a mask on and interface again. Yay, right? So we've gotten there, right? But this is putting more pressure on websites to perform those stats. Okay, other areas that'll drive traffic to your site. We all know patient portals are a pain in the butt. Everybody raise their hand who has multiple patient portals, one for your physician clinic and one for a hospital. Anybody have that scenario still? Yeah, so and they're a pain to deal with. You gotta make sure they work right, you gotta style them. But they're super advantageous to have, and they drive a lot of traffic through your site. So they're key. Online bill pay, that's the other thing. Anybody else have online bill pay built into a portal or, okay, yeah. Online bill pay. So the number one reason why you go to a bank site is online bill pay, same reason, right? So if you look at a bank's SEO report or Google Analytics report, their number one entry point is basically online banking and online bill pay. And when hospitals offer something similar, it's the same thing. There's a lot of traffic going to that. It's going to bring more audiences. Really, when you look at it, search engines look at quite a few different factors when ranking a page, and one of them is pure traffic. Like you actually get a boost in SEO quality score from running pay-per-click because you're boosting traffic to your site. You're basically drawing more people there, and Google says, well, then there must be something going on with that site, right? There's traffic to that page. There's people spending time there. So Jim's going to tell you a lot more about some of the deeper, tactical ways of influencing this, but it's really sometimes more simple than you even know. The algorithm updates through the years. So some of you may have been in this organization long enough to remember we did a hummingbird breakout a number of years ago, and I cannot believe it's been that long when I look at that date. So it's been like 5, 6, 7 years ago already. So a lot of different algorithm updates. Again, just as a refresher, the hummingbird was the one. Remember when the search engines, as you started to type in just a couple characters, all of a sudden they gave you results? That was hummingbird. So that was all that tracking, the cookie tracking, and be able to track all the browser history and to know, yep, you're looking for the emergency room before you even finish typing it. That was really the most amazing breakthrough that Google really introduced. But there's core updates that they put out for a lot of different reasons. Site security updates, BERT, which is multi-language, so scoring sites based on that. The latest, last two were focused on quality content, so scoring sites based on their quality of the content. And then user experience was the last one. There's one more that Jim's going to go over here in a bit. The core update was really site speed. So if some of our clients are in this room, site speed's a big deal. Why are you starting to see more sites use less video? If they can't optimize their video well on, say, their homepage, they're actually getting dinged for the time it takes for that page to load. Why is that? Mobile visits. So we have more mobile visits than ever in the history of marketing. And Google basically scores the pages and, well, overall websites based on their performance on a mobile device, lowest common denominator, right? LTE, not sitting here on wireless, right? So when you're out and about running around in a store or something trying to find a solution, you're only on LTE, you barely have like 2 bars. That's what they want to see. How well does that site perform in the lowest common denominator? Not no service, obviously, but some service. Will it at least load? And when you have unoptimized video files that are too large, have too much detail. They're gorgeous. It's that balancing act between user experience and speed. So that was the last one. Okay. So Jim, you want to jump into some all kinds of stuff here we're going to go through, all right? There's a lot to SEO. It's like a 2-column sheet on what we deliver, and Jim's going to roll through it. So Jim?
Yeah, so the first thing we're going to talk about is while we were actually getting ready for this presentation, Google rolled out their newest update when it comes to search engines, and they've dubbed it the Helpful Content Update, which is actually really good for everybody in the room, for healthcare marketers, because it's Google's continued focus on providing users with a positive experience. Just as the last time they wanted users to be able to load a site quickly and easily, now it becomes they want users to get answers to the questions that they have quickly and easily. So the Helpful Content Update is just reinforcing the idea that the content on your website needs to be of high quality to the average user. It needs to answer their questions. So some things to remember when you're thinking of helpful content is, are you writing for humans and not search engines? They're really trying to get away of the idea of, I can game the system. I can write to a search engine. They're trying to kind of make that more and more difficult. So they're trying to reinforce the idea that you have to write for humans. You have to write for the people who are searching for your website. Add your own content and show your expertise to your audience. Don't just regurgitate what everybody else says. They want unique content. They want content that shows that you're an expert in your field, that you guys know what you're talking about. And then most importantly, don't leave your audience with more questions than answers. One of the examples Google specifically gives, and it's one thing I run into all the time, and I think most people do, is you've watched your favorite show, and now you're like, all right, when's season 2? And you Google when's season 2, and you get all these clickbait links that don't tell you the answer, that they claim to tell you the answer, but then when you click on it and you read through the text, it doesn't actually give you the answer. Those are the sites Google's going after with these. All right, sites that don't answer questions. So that's the newest update. So some things that you can do to help yourselves with Google besides just the helpful content. One of the first things you need to do is you need to make sure your site has a sitemap. The sitemap tells Google what your site contains, what pages are available. So that's really important. The second part, once you have your sitemap created, is you'll want to make sure that your pages are actually indexed. So that means that they're findable by Google. So you have the map that tells Google what all the pages you have are, but then the index tells Google, yes, these are available pages to include in your index. The index is what Google searches when somebody kind of types in keywords. That's the filter it's going to use. So you need to make sure that it's available to it's actually available to Google, that they can find the pages. And then most importantly, you need to make sure that Google knows when those pages are being updated, that there's dates included. So Google knows when you have fresh content. And we'll talk about it later, how important fresh content is to Google as well. But if you don't have dates in your sitemap, Google doesn't know that you've updated a page. So for example, we're going to show you two separate sitemaps here. So here's one example of a sitemap here. This is one that's made by a plugin called Yoast. So that's a really common WordPress plugin. It automatically creates your sitemap immediately for you. It includes the different pages that are on your site. It includes the last modified date. So that way Google knows, okay, we've just made an update to this page, in the last couple weeks. It can pick that back up and re-index the page.
Well, that actually contributes to your scores. So you don't want to see a lot of zeros on there. So that hospital has some work to do. A lot of zeros, right? A lot of not updates. But there's a lot of pages you're not going to update every day as well.
So this is an example of an XML sitemap that's created dynamically. So the great thing about this is it's going to update automatically as you update it. We're kind of past the days where you had to kind of manually update your sitemap. We're now at the point where everything should just get updated automatically as you go ahead and create new sites and you create new pages. It just automatically is going to feed into your XML sitemap. And then Google will actually go find this themselves. You can kind of let Google know it's there. There's different ways. You can use your Search Console to tell it, hey, I've made updates. I need to resubmit my sitemap. But at the same time, Google will re-index your pages automatically when it sees those dates have changed. So it's important that it stays dynamic and it stays visible to the public. So I'll bring this back up. Okay, so another key feature of SEO is also alt-image tags. This is something probably most people are familiar with. It's that little description on each image that tells a user what that image is containing, what that image is about. This plays a crucial role in SEO because search engines can't read images. There's no text to them. It's one of the reasons why we always say, be careful when you put too much text in your images, because the search engine can't read a keyword that's in your image. It can read alt image tags though, and that's why it plays a really important role to make sure that all your images on your site have an alt image tag, that the search engine knows what that image is about and contains.
Google's emphasizing images and videos more and more. And when you look at the number of times you might search based on image, a lot of people will find your site by doing that same kind of image search. And they'll stumble on a page that solves a problem based on just searching for an image.
It can also help when your web page isn't loading as quickly. So maybe they're at a really bad connection, they're sitting with one bar on a 3G connection. Images are struggling to load. It can still explain to the user what that image is containing. They're not lost. One of the most important things when it comes to Google, when it comes to SEO, is they want users to have a good experience. If they go to your page and they get lost and they hop right back out again, that's going to hurt long term in regards to the SEO. Alt image tags also kind of move us into screen readers. So screen readers is an interesting thing when it comes to SEO, and kind of like Randy had mentioned with ADA compliance. Screen readers by themselves, of course, don't impact your SEO because they're not something you put on your website. They're something somebody uses on your website. But again, the idea is we want users to have a good experience when they go on your website. And one of the most important ways you can do that is make sure your websites are accessible to everybody. and specifically when it comes to screen readers. So when you use alt image tags, that allows a screen reader to describe to somebody, hey, this is what that image contains. It's also important to make sure that it's not just your alt image tag. Sometimes we get overly focused on those with screen readers, but it's also about navigating your web pages. Remember, when somebody's using a screen reader, they're not viewing your web page. They're literally listening to your web page. Does your web page flow in a nice, orderly fashion? Does it make sense to somebody who's using it? Are there missing links on your page? Does a link tell somebody where they're going? You want to make sure that somebody who's using a screen reader doesn't end up getting lost on your website, that they don't know where they are, they don't know what page they went to, they don't have audio automatically playing, because then that's going to override what the screen reader is saying. So it's important to make sure that it just flows in a nice orderly fashion. So as we talked about with ADA, we'll kind of move on from there as well. There's really 4 key points when we talk about ADA compliance, and specifically when we're talking about it kind of with the guise of SEO, and that's a website should be perceivable, it should be operable, it should be understandable, and it should be robust. Those are the 4 things to kind of really make sure you're keeping in mind as you build your website. So perceivable is actually really easy. It just means that you've removed any barriers from somebody viewing your website, that they don't have any issues. So for example, as we talked about with like alt image tags, we have an example here. It shows us Dr. Elliott having a discussion with the patient. That tells us what's going on in the photo, and it tells everybody else who's using a screen reader or is having any issues with that photo, what's going on in that photo, and whether or not it's something they need to know. Another really easy way to do it is anytime you embed a YouTube video is making sure they have the ability to use closed captioning. That they can watch the videos on your site and they can read the closed captioning if they're not able to hear it. So, and the great thing is with YouTube, that's kind of a standard feature. So as long as you're embedding with YouTube, you have that solved. But we want to make sure we remove any barriers, that everybody can view your website as you guys intend it to be.
And pages are actually scored higher with a video at a minimum. And then a video with the closed captioning is going to be even more compliant. So Google's paying attention to all of this. So it's really worth it. I mean, don't force really bad videos into pages, but you know, if you can add one to a landing page, it's just going to jack it up even higher and help with conversions.
So operable. This means that anybody can use your website. There's not barriers to use. So it works on any device. It works on any of the supported browsers that exist anymore. It works on tablets and phones. It works with screen readers. It works with assistive technology. So it needs to be operable. Anybody can use it at any time. So that's really important. Understandable. This comes down to people being able to navigate your website. Again, that there's a natural flow. There's lots of different ways that you can do it, but a couple of examples that you can specifically look at, and the screenshot's a little narrow, so I'm going to pull it up on here really quick. So this is a page that sits multiple levels down from our main homepage. So there's different ways that you can make sure somebody knows where they're at. You can add breadcrumbs to your page and show them an easy way back to where they came from. You can add side menus to show them multiple other options. But the idea is we don't want somebody to get so far down a rabbit hole they can't figure out how to get back. And sometimes I think it seems really easy for us to kind of be like, well, how can you not navigate it? But it's important to remember with people who maybe are using a screen reader, are having trouble, operating a menu, they're on a mobile device. These are all things that can be really helpful to them to be able to find their way and navigate through your website easily. So there needs to be an understandable, and then it needs to be robust. It needs to work with technology. So when we talk about screen readers, for example, in this case, you can see we have two different, we have an accordion view, and accordions are obviously really popular. We like adding little widgets onto our pages, and it makes it look nice. But it's important that those also operate with different technologies, that they're robust. So in this case, and again, it's kind of difficult to see, the code literally changes as an accordion is opened. So it can tell the user who's using a screen reader that the accordion is closed, and then it can tell them the accordion is open. So it's important that that technology exists. We can't just add code just to add code and fancy things. We have to make sure that it can operate within those different tools.
So any questions so far? Any of that? I know some of it's relatively technical, but a lot of it's common sense too. Yes?
Just going to the videos. So I recently took videos of one of our clinicians vertically, and my intent was to use it just on Instagram, but now our owner is saying, well, let's put it on YouTube. I've gotten feedback from others that I should just go back and reshoot the video horizontally. What is your take on the SEO elements? Because I know it looks crappy, like to have vertical on YouTube, but for purely like SEO purposes, is there a distinction between video that's shot one way or the other?
No, not really, because SEO is mainly the existence of a video as well as the closed captioning and the text that are around it. So that's more of a user experience thing, being able to watch a video that's vertical, and if you throw a background behind it, I mean, it can still work. It's probably better to reshoot it. That's what I would recommend too, but yeah. But no, from an SEO standpoint, it doesn't really matter.
YouTube's also introduced YouTube Shorts, which is kind of their answer to Instagram.
Yeah.
So I believe you can like it's meant to be
that's
viewed
right.
in more of a vertical
Yep, that's
format
right.
now.
You can
so you upload it
yep.
as what's called a short.
Short, yep, and it comes up vertically in a little embed. That's right, that's brand new. Yeah, so look up YouTube Shorts depending on how long the video is, because you can get around that and it'll put it in a different frame instead of that wide frame.
A lot of, it's YouTube's
Yeah.
answer since everybody
Yep.
videos
Yep.
for Instagram and TikTok and everything.
Anyone else? Before we go ahead, Nicole.
All image tags, is
Yeah.
that something that you do in your site, or is that something you have to do when you save your image? Like how you
Well, you can do it a couple different ways. Depends on the CMS. I mean, WordPress, there's fields right in there for alt image tags, but
Yeah, each one's going to be done differently. Typically, your alt image tag is assigned to your image, not to the individual page. So when you upload your image, a lot of times is when you'll add the alt image tag, and then that actually saves it to the specific image that you've uploaded. But it kind of depends on which CMS you're using and kind of how
whether it's custom
how they're
or-
built out.
Yeah, because like we have custom websites we built, and that CMS is different, and then WordPress with Yoast is actually even easier. Yoast is pretty amazing. We'll cover that a little bit more, but yeah. But
you save your like JPEG or PNG, like you don't have to name it the same. So when you're uploading it, it's like
yeah, I mean the alt image tag is going to be more descriptive. It's going to be longer. Just more descriptive of what that person is seeing, and it's really for ADA. It's always been that way. It's really for people who can't see that they're using screen readers. Otherwise, and also for the slow loading page thing. So you can just see there's an image there. It's like, oh, good, there's an image there. It's going to load eventually. We've all seen that. So, okay.
So are photo captions on?
Photo captions are okay. But
Yeah, you can still have photo captions. So those are typically two different things in most cases. Your captions obviously informing somebody about. Sometimes it can be informative of what's like a person in the photo or who took the photo. Alt image tags again tend to be more descriptive. You're trying to make sure that if somebody, like if you couldn't see the photo, how you would describe that. And maybe you are trying to hit keywords because, again, Google can read those alt image tags. But yeah, most places still use captions. They're just kind of used as a different purpose.
Yeah, put more keywords in alt image tags because, as I mentioned earlier about an image search, when you switch to image in Google, a lot of times you'll see images that are on web pages. They're not stock images. They're mixed in, right? They want you to buy a stock image, but they'll be your images sometimes. And then people are just like, they click and they're on the web page. So really important to do that. That's like at a minimum, alt image tags are super critical. So anything else before we go on? Good? Okay. All right, so why is ADA so important? And I'm not trying to scare you guys, but it's starting to get more serious that we really need to look at this. So it's not just about ramps coming into your buildings, now it's your website. And why is that? Well, I talked about telehealth earlier. So, and portals. So your website's becoming a part of your infrastructure, your physical concrete infrastructure of your organization. So We got to make sure people can get in there who have impairities, right? So the number of Americans with Disability Act lawsuits has quadrupled since 2013. So now that's not website, lawsuits, but that's all lawsuits, okay? So, but business owners are now facing an increasing possibility of being hit with lawsuit now, including hospitals. So we all know why ADA was created, but it's starting to, that protection that it gives extends online as well to social media and websites. So who's at most at risk? And this is the list. So travel and hospitality, obviously. Restaurants and food service, medical health. So you're third on the list. And why is that? Well, in a lot of ways, you're like hospitality. You have places people go and they stay. But even more so, you're dealing with the public that needs help, and sometimes they're trying to get the answers on their own about something really, really critical. So we have to be compliant to help people that have disabilities be able to find that information. And when you don't, it can result in some lawsuits, and you can become a target. So, and most of those settlements on smaller and mid-sized businesses, which a lot of small hospitals would fall into, might be anywhere between 5K and 20K. They could be larger on bigger systems. There's a law firm that's been tracking the number of lawsuits filed under ADA each year, and the data shows in 2021 more than 11,400 people filed an ADA Title III lawsuit. So a lot of it going on. That's why we're separating this out of our SEO process, and we're looking at it, and we're doing audits now and estimates for our clients of what it's going to take to get a website fully ADA compliant and then keep it there. And that's just like SEO, it never stops because the algorithms always change, the rules always change. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that, not to scare you all and panic and leave and rush back to your websites and fix them in 5 minutes. It's going to take some time, but if you have more questions on that, let me know, and we can always take a look at that for your site as well. Jim?
So we're just going to talk some more about some different SEO strategies that you can implement. Another example is canonicals. So one of the things Google obviously does is it indexes millions and millions of pages every day. Canonicals helps it decide what pages are unique content and what pages are duplicates. So it allows you to tag a page as unique content, that you own that content, you came up with it, you wrote it, it's your unique idea. And you specifically do canonicals via a tag. So in this case, so this is an example of a canonical tag. The canonical obviously tells Google when they're reading the page that there's a canonical on the page, and then the URL tells it what that canonical page is, so where that unique content came from. Now, in a lot of your cases, these could just be self-referential canonicals. You could just be referring to the page that this is on, and that's fine. Google's okay with that. Google doesn't mind that you've made one that you're referencing just the page that it's currently on. It appreciates that because it knows it's unique content. But what it does do is if you have a page, a duplicate page, for whatever reason, sometimes it's just the URL is different. It's the same page, but maybe you're using a slightly different URL because you're driving traffic through a different media. What you can do is you can reference back to the original page, and then Google knows not to index that other page, to only show the one. So that can be really important, just to make sure that Google knows that you have that unique content and that you own the content.
Yeah, it's just helping Google be the great librarian of information. So you're just giving it clues, and they will ding you for duplicate pages. So if you have a bunch of duplicate pages in your menu, and again, it's that whole gaming the system thing. It's most of these rules are all made up because of bad apples, right? People kind of abusing things to try to get traffic. So if you're given a nod to say, hey, this is the original version of this, go there. We might have this page duplicated over here in this recruitment section because we feel it's necessary. This is the main one, so they know, right? And then it just keeps you from getting your quality score lowered on that page. So again, a lot of this stuff's common sense, just takes a little knowledge and time to do it. So.
Another great SEO tool that you can use is blogs and blog promotion. So blogs, they feel somewhat dated in some ways. But they're still a really important tool when it comes to SEO. One, it allows you to produce new content, but it also allows you to focus on the keywords you want to advertise. One of the biggest things with SEO, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, is you want to rank for keywords. You want people to find your website when they search for something. So if you're promoting different things, writing blog topics, adding that content onto your website, that just gives Google more chances to find you when somebody searches by those keywords. So making sure that you're blogging, and they don't have to be the longest blogs in the world, but when you hit those keywords and you answer questions that people may have on services that you're offering, Google sees that. They see that as new content, they see it as original content, but most importantly, they can pick up more of those keywords from your website. They're finding you as an expert in whatever it is that you're trying to rank for. And that can become really important. It's just a great tool to have on your website to be able to promote yourself.
You know, some of you may be doing this already, but does anyone here do any related blog content that's indexed to certain pages? So in other words, if you're on, say, an ophthalmology page and say you've written a blog about cataracts, it'll flow a teaser of that blog onto that landing page. Does anybody do that? A little bit? Yeah. But that's a way, you know, remember when I showed you Yoast and it has all those zeros on there? So it shows like the page hasn't been updated for a while. So when you do that related content indexing, so when you launch that blog, it indexes all over your site and updates the pages all over the place automatically. So it's like update, update, update. It's like cleaning your closet almost, right? So it's always a good feeling when you complete that. So that's another great technique. So blogs have been around a while, but Google loves content, and Google loves content in lots of different places and when it's relevant, right? And why? Because it's helping people on the journey of discovery. And by giving them a related article, that just helps them. Newspaper sites do it, same thing, right? You're always seeing them referencing related articles. It's great. Gannett's whole platform's built that way. You're reading an article and there's a related one. And then you read a little bit more, there's a related one. Same principle, right? They're just helping you be fully informed on a topic. You guys are really the same way with healthcare. Fully informed, right? Better informed, better patients. Yeah.
Actually, I have two questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned the length of the blogs, and I feel like between like the company we use, I get sometimes conflicting information about these short little quippy 200-300 word blogs, and then I get like 800 words is like the optimal. Is it like a mix of lengths, or is there like a range that we should be shooting for in terms of word counts?
Well, I would do at least 300 words because that's one of the standards for optimized web pages. But they don't need to be 2 or 3 pages long, but they can be sometimes. You know, I think you have to look at the content that's being conveyed and how in depth you want to get. And sometimes in depth is good. There's nothing wrong with it, right? When you really get, if you have a physician that combines with you on an article, rarely do they write themselves on their blogs on their own, but sometimes they will. And if they're a really good writer and they have great reference material and a lot of external links back out to reference material, that's all good. So.
And then we have like a blog, but we call it like news and resources, but I heard that I should be calling it blog, so it's super, super clear to Google, like on the menu. Is there one way or the other, like standard wording for that?
I mean, I think you can still have a clever name. We do a little bit of both.
Yeah. My understanding is it's the content's more important than necessarily the name, is what it's going to ultimately come down to. Yeah, so I mean, whether or not you call it blog, it'd definitely be one of those things where I think whether or not it impacts a Google search rating is probably somewhat debatable. There's a lot of things in that range. The important thing is you're adding new content and you're adding helpful content. That's going to go a lot further than necessarily the name of the blog.
The other thing we do with blogs is that we'll backlink them off other sites that'll take content. And backlinking strategies are huge and really elevates your pages too. So that could be a whole nother conference. But go ahead.
The other thing blogs do, and we kind of touched on this already, is it increases your dwell time. If somebody's clicking on multiple spots on your website, if they're reading blogs from your website, that's just increasing the amount of time a reader spends on your blog. Again, dwell time's not a direct rating factor when it comes to SEO. It doesn't mean just because you have a longer dwell time, you end up further higher for sure on Google search engines. But it is an indirect factor. It does somewhat matter. The more time somebody spends on your website to Google, that means the more of an expert you are. And that can help you in the long run, the more brand authority you have. So it's important to remember, not everything that you can do is just, oh, if I do A, it directly means that I'm gonna go up. But it's kind of all building on each other. Blogs help build on dwell time, which help build on your brand authority. And that kind of all increases your SEO score and your ability to show up higher in these rankings.
Yeah. Again, there was a time when we used to measure website success by number of pages visited and average time on site. But really all it matters, especially in an appointment-based business like you're in, is that they get to a page efficiently, they read or listen to a video, whatever they need, and they make a decision and they book. I mean, one page is great. That's why bounce rates are not a huge deal anymore. It's like a lot of times they're worried about bounce rates being high. Bounce rate could be just because they went to the one page that was really, really good off of a pay-per-click ad and they took action and they're good. They didn't need to go anywhere else. Sometimes you'll just read a web page and you won't do anything, but you got what you needed. And then you talk to your friend again and go, okay, I did read about that physician. And then later on, you book the appointment or sometimes by phone. And of course, our industry is way too connected to the phone still with appointment setting. So my daughter just had to battle her way into an allergy and asthma specialist in Chicago over the phone, even though she filled out a form. It's like the battle of getting an appointment, right, with a specialist. I think we all agree. Where a lot of other industries like hospitality, like this hotel, easy. They make it easy. You just go on there and you can make a decision and book. We make it harder. We make it a little harder, but that's the big picture of it, right? So I just want to make sure you guys don't always worry about some of those stats that we used to worry about in the past, because we've gotten more sophisticated now, I think, with portals and all the other tools you have.
Do you have a gauge of how successful the booking online thing is in our industry currently? I mean, I think that's one of those things that's, what's the word for it? We talk about it like it's happening, but when you go to actually do it, it's not really happening that often, at least in my experience, that I can fully book my appointment online, unless it's behind a portal.
Yeah, if you have a relationship with the healthcare organization and the portal's really good and it talks to the scheduling software, so of course this is probably not rural, because rural folks can't really afford that level of technology sometimes. I haven't seen it that much. It's really rare. But like say maybe Advocate in Chicago has that. I know I'm not in Chicago, so I've never tested their system, but the bigger systems are getting there. And you go to Shishmid, there's a lot of vendors that do all that, right? So I think we'll get there eventually, but it's super frustrating to me, I think. Yeah. But I think like this particular specialist, they had all their offices shown, they had the hours on each one shown, and I helped her do a form, and then she was able to request which day worked the best by looking at the hours on the site. So it was still helpful, and then when she filled out a form, then they called her in a terrible time the next day, of course, and then it took 2 or 3 days to finally connect. What I see as missing in healthcare is the lack of use of text. It's still so like timing the perfect phone call. There's too much of it. It's still like constant phone tag. But I know part of it is confidentiality. There's a lot of it's harder, Yeah. Texting can reveal information that can be tracked, and
that's the next mecca vendor. You give us that text vendor that integrates with the EHR and drops it in the right place, and we're all there.
Yeah, it's just not quite that easy yet. But I mean, we've come a long way. We really have when you look back. So, Jim, you want to talk a little bit about page speed? We touched on that a little bit.
So we touched on page speed before. Again, this is kind of one of the newest things. It's one everybody's struggling with. Google wants a site that's fast. And most importantly, it wants a site that's fast on mobile. That's what they care about. So you need to, when you're testing it, it's important not to always use your connection. There's special tools. You can use a Lighthouse report. But to make sure you're running it through, seeing if it's fast. It's also important to remember, again, that this is one ranking tool. Sometimes we get kind of hung up on page speed. I got to get the highest number. That's not always necessarily, we don't want the page to load slow. We don't want users to get frustrated. But, the fastest speed is going to be kind of created by a site that's very minimalized design-wise. And you still want to create a site that looks nice, that people enjoy visiting. So it's kind of that balance of how do I create a site that looks good while still making sure that my users, especially my users on mobile who have a cellular connection, are going to be able to load this page quickly and easily and have a good experience with it. Mobile responsiveness, I think at this point most people are kind of aware, again, the vast majority of your traffic is going to come through mobile now. It just increases every single year. It's more mobile and it's more mobile. Your site needs to be mobile optimized. Essentially anything that they can do on your desktop, they should also be able to do on your mobile design as well. And then again, we talked about this before, the recent data, making sure your content's staying up to date, making sure it's new, it's fresh, it's original. That's all going to be important to Google. If your site doesn't change for 2 years, Google's going to stop ranking you as high. You're going to start losing keywords. Those are all things that are going to impact you. So again, blogs are a really easy way to give your site fresh information. Because a lot of times, those services pages, they don't change a lot unless you have a new doctor or you add a new service. So blogs can be a really good way to kind of keep your site fresh. The other thing that you can always do with blogs as well is it's important to remember is you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. If you have a blog post from 4 years ago that worked really well, you can update that blog post, give it some fresh information, and repost it. Google's going to see that as essentially new content again. It's going to have that fresh date on it, and they're going to re-index it. So sometimes it's that easy. It's not necessarily I got to come up with a new idea every single month forever. You can revisit information.
Yeah, looking at how your site is indexed, looking at Google Analytics reports to see traffic to certain pages. Like a lot of times we'll go through this exercise when we develop a new site. I know, Mark, we did that quite a bit. And if you go to morrishospital.org, it's a real good example where we did a menu for them that really had the most critical pages in the top drop-down layer. So it's like the icing on the cake right away, instead of the whole cake. And then you dig deeper and you use submenus for all those other pages that we all think we have to have. But it's like, again, like I said about cleaning out the closet. It's like sometimes it's good to look at a website and go, do we really need a page on this? Is anybody even going there? And would we ever promote that page? And just kind of clean it out a little bit and look at where do they need to go first and get them there fast. And we know we want to get them to the provider pages too. I mean, we all want to get them there as fast as we can. So think about that too, because that relates to recency as well. Because you can have a lot of pages just nobody ever goes to them. All right, so social bookmarking. So what is that? Well, if you've ever sent a link to a website to a friend, you've used social bookmarking. So believe it or not, social bookmarking does contribute to SEO. So this is something that I think is really, in a lot of ways, a lost art. So just bookmarking a web page on a browser to read later means web users can track your content. So therefore, if they're tracking it, then search engines are going to track it. They're going to keep track of that data. So something to think about is I know we always are caught up with asking people to follow our social media pages. That's good. But asking people to bookmark your site, I hardly ever see that in marketing, right? We always just say, here's our website. You could always say bookmark our site. And that actually is a good action to recommend to them. Just bookmark this page in an ad. And just, because it's so quick, right? But we don't really direct people to do that much. We just kind of rely on them to do it. So that can be an action that can help contribute to SEO as well. Yoast. So Jim's going to pull up an example of this. So that's that plugin we showed a little bit from on WordPress. And I know we probably have some people in here on WordPress. I know Mark is. And believe me, WordPress isn't like the perfect platform for everyone. But this is a great tool. And I'm going to have him show you how Yoast ranks a page and how we can use it.
Yeah, so Yoast is a WordPress plugin. It's pretty much the most popular WordPress SEO plugin on the market. We use the free version. There's paid versions as well. The free version is pretty much going to get you everything that you need to do. one, it can give us a understanding of where we are at from SEO, so it gives us a smiley face so we know we're good. It can easily allow us to add our meta descriptions in, our SEO titles. It can give us a preview of what somebody's going to look at when they see your website, when they're Googling it, which is really nice. You know, it even gives you the little green bar so you make sure that you're at the right number of words for your meta description, which is really good. That way you're not having to sit there and use Word and try to count the number of letters, because you have to optimize it. I think it's somewhere between like 130 and 150, which sounds like a lot, but it actually isn't. And it can get really difficult at times to kind of make sure that that green bar is right. So that's really helpful, and kind of gives you that green thing. The other thing it can do, and we're not, as I mentioned before, one of the things that people kind of fall into, you notice like the readability is a red face. Again, that's writing to a search engine or writing to a software. We don't want to worry about that. Sometimes we look at these programs and we try to get the programs to answer our questions, but Google cares more that you're writing content for your users that makes sense to your users and answers their questions than whether or not a machine thinks a page is readable. So don't try to track your readability with AI or anything like that. You're going to know more about the readability for your users than any type of like computer software is going to know. The other thing that's really nice about Yoast is it gives you the Facebook previews. This is really helpful because then you know when somebody shares a page or you share a page, what image is going to show up and what description is going to show up with that image. And that's really helpful because sometimes you can end up with the case where, well, I don't like that image. I don't want that image to share. I'd rather have it share a different image. And Yoast makes it really easy to basically decide what image you're going to share on Facebook when somebody shares that post. It does it for Twitter as well. But that's just something that's really helpful with them. There's other platforms that do it. Yoast just does it really easily. I mean, the fact that you can replace the image with a click of a button, you don't have to get into the code and name, you know, your new meta images and all these other things that Facebook picks. Because sometimes Facebook can pick really weird images. They have very specific sizes as to what it needs to be to actually show up.
Yeah, you don't want your cat photos to show up, so be careful. Okay. DuckDuckGo, so a little bit of discussion about that just a few minutes ago across the hall. Yeah, very, very low usage rate so far, but getting there. They're dumping millions of dollars. I don't know where the money's coming from, but I guess it's coming from some of their ad programs, but man, are they advertising. I don't know if everybody noticed that. I mean, billboards and every other ad, I think, on radio and everything. So they're making a big push about this anonymous platform, right? So it doesn't follow users with personalized ads. The main difference, they don't allow targeting or retargeting, but they do have ads, and people are using it. We'll see how long it lasts. So Google's pretty powerful. So, but that's just something to kind of keep in mind that it's out there. And then how do we display search engine results? Well, the main thing that we do is we use about 10 to 12 keywords, and it's a moving target all the time. Keyword phrases that we'll measure against, and our goal is to get first page, and this happens to be a new report for a hospital in Ohio. And we've basically attained almost first position on every single keyword phrase they're going after. Now, a lot of those have the town names mixed in with them, and that's because we have to be realistic. That's a rural hospital with, really, it's not even a part of a metro market. It's on the border of Ohio and Indiana. It's all by itself, which is actually kind of nice for them in some ways. Other ways, it's kind of more of a struggle for recruitment. But you know, if I throw up a page for a hospital that's, say, in the Quad Cities, it's going to be completely different because there's a lot more competition. There's so many more cities. That organization might have locations in different cities, so the relevance of putting their name in by measuring that would be lower, right? So, and then we look at frequency and reach of sessions, and as well as a general audience overview and where people are coming from. So, but that just gives you an example of kind of what's the big picture in terms of rankings, and then of course conversions really relates more to pay-per-click. So when you get into digital marketing, you're going to look more at conversion tracking. And the hopes is that if you optimize your page as well, there are some areas of your service lines and physicians that you may not have to pay or really do as much advertising for. One of the number one things I see all the time, I'll search for an organization's name with really pretty exact keywords in it, including even their town name, and they'll come up right away and they're bidding on their own name. And that's something I never recommend. If we can optimize for it, why in the world would you have to pay for a search ad on your own name, your own organization name? Now that another consultant across the way was talking about bidding on physicians' names, that's different. Those are people, they move around, right? You recruit them in, they leave, they come from somewhere else. That makes total sense, what he was talking about over there. But your own entity, your own brand name, that's been around a while that you invested. People, if they know they want to find your site, they should be able to find it and not click at the very top and make you pay every time they click on just your homepage. So that's something I see a lot of our competitors do actually. So it increases the number of click-throughs from the program automatically because it's up there. And I'm like, I always shy away from that. So you don't need to do that, just so you know, if anybody's doing that. So I just want to relay that little tip and open it up for more questions. So anyone have anything else? This has been, hopefully been useful. So, yes.
So the practice that I work for, we're actually in the Chicago suburbs. So
Yep.
with your session and the gentleman before, you know, I had seen a lot of the rural focus. So do you have any recommendations on how to use that kind of focus, but like in the different suburbs around like the Quad Cities, like you said, or Chicago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do a lot of work in Chicago. So it's just numbers. You know, you can still use tight radiuses. You can still use all the same data tools just because it's a higher pop. Even more, you know, you have to be even more accurate in your marketing being in that costly 9 million person market, right? So you've got to be even more defined because you can have even more waste traffic that's going to cost you money. If you run a lot of digital advertising, you can get a lot more false clicks. You've got, I mean, we've run a lot of digital advertisings in the Chicago market, and it'll fill fast, it's kind of a term, you know, it'll fill quick, right? Your daily average. So you really want to be accurate with that as much as you can. And again, that's why SEO could help reduce some of that cost and that strain. Because if the site's well optimized, there might be some areas where you can look at and go, you know, I think we're good. We're getting good organic traffic on this service. You know, we're getting good conversions. We're busy in that service. Of course, that's the big picture, right? What's your market share? Are you doing well? Do you need to even promote that service line? So absolutely, you know, definitely.
To piggyback on that too, because one of the things that a company that we're looking to help with our non-paid SEO is like a whole list of all these little locations and putting like little fences around them. But in terms of like, would we benefit, for instance, saying we do all these different kinds of procedures and we have admitting rights at these hospitals, which we do, but would that be a positive thing to do because we're mentioning these hospitals, even though we just have admitting rights there, we're not like actually practicing out of them?
I mean, are you doing that on a web page, or are you doing?
Well, you just kind of sparked the idea, like moments ago, because I'm trying, like we do major surgeries out of hospitals and like, you know, like in different, I guess, big cities in suburbs.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to figure out ways to get people's attention if they're saying, oh, I want to go to Sherman Advocate in Huntley, Illinois, but even though we practice and we have operations there, that's not one of our locations, but we share a lot of overlapping patient audience, for instance.
Okay. Can I ask you what specialty is? Podiatry, yeah. So in that case, you'd want to definitely have those external links on your web pages back to those hospitals. Those hospital sites will have even more traffic than your practice's site would probably ever have. Think about how much traffic an Advocate probably gets overall every day. It's probably crazy. And then I think, second of all, look at what you might bid on from a paid side. So you may want to pay, you might want to bid on, say, you know, Advocate, Sherman, Hospital, comma, you know, and then that's that specialty or that service, you know. If it's affordable, I mean, you want to look at what that bid rate would be. But in most cases, you can do it. And you're just trying to make sure people find you as a solution. You're not really attacking them. You're just making sure your messages are showing up in that search, right? That's relevant to that audience. So, yeah, something I would definitely do. So, anybody else before we wrap up? I know we're standing between you guys and bottles of beer and wine and other fun, so a lot more fun than websites, but I guess we kind of think this stuff is fun. I don't know why. So, yeah.
When we were are looking into paid campaign, pay-per-click, a lot of it comes down to us looking first at organically.
Right.
You know, obviously there's the areas of need that we look into, the orthopedics and stuff like that the money will go to. But when it comes into you know, debatable topics, we first look organically. How are we doing organically?
Right.
And then translates to if we need to do paid.
Yeah.
Paid. So
exactly.
Hand in hand.
Yep. Yeah, they do. I mean, you want to look inwardly first, see how well you're performing, relate that to how what the business results are. Sometimes we forget that big picture if we don't get enough information from you know, from your leadership team, you know. But if you're empowered with that information, it makes you even smarter as a digital marketer. But yeah, exactly. Thank you for adding that. Anyone else? All right, I want to thank you all so much for coming and listening. Appreciate it.